You know that feeling, right? You see ISO 9001 audit pop up on the calendar and your stomach just drops. Well, a lot of us feel that way. But what if I told you that audit wasn't some final exam you have to dread? What if it was actually a tool to make your business better? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the whole process and show you how to flip that audit anxiety into a real competitive advantage. All right, so here's our roadmap. First, we're going to tackle that audit fear head on. Then, we'll dive into the blueprint for what makes ISO 9001 actually work. We'll walk through what a modern audit looks like, step by step, and even get into the auditor's secret toolkit. And finally, we'll talk about what happens after the audit, because that's where the real work begins. Okay, let's just get it out there. Why does the very word audit make so many of us want to run for the hills? Well, for a lot of teams, it feels like someone's just coming in to point out everything you're doing wrong. It creates this whole vibe of pressure and defensiveness. And honestly, that fear can actually set you up for failure before the auditor even walks in the door. And here's a perfect real-world example of what happens when that goes wrong. This healthcare provider, they failed their audit. And it wasn't because of some tiny little procedural error. It was because the people at the top saw quality as just another task for the QA department, not as a fundamental part of their entire business. You see, the audit didn't cause the problem, it just held up a mirror to it. So this really boils it down to two paths, two completely different mindsets. On one side, you've got the pitfall. You see it as pointless paperwork. Your team checks out and you probably fail. But on the other side, you see the opportunity. And that's where you find efficient processes, empowered teams, and success that actually lasts. So the big question is, how do we make sure we're on that opportunity path? Well, it all starts with understanding the blueprint that ISO 9001 is actually built on. And believe it or not, the entire philosophy of this massive global standard really comes down to just 7 core principles. Now, these aren't just fancy buzzwords to put on a poster. They are the why behind the whole system. And if you ask me, the one that really makes or breaks a company is leadership. It goes right back to that healthcare provider, right? If the leaders aren't genuinely bought in, the whole thing just crumbles. When you get these principles right, quality becomes part of your company's DNA. So, from those 7 big ideas, we get 10 clauses. And these are the how-to guide for the standard. The ones you really need to focus on are clauses 4 through 10. Think of them as a continuous cycle. Plan, do, check, act. You figure out what you're going to do it, you check your results, and then you act on what you've learned to get even better. It's not a one-and-done checklist. It's a living system for constant improvement. And maybe the biggest shift in the modern version of ISO 9001 is this idea of risk-based thinking. It's about moving from just reacting to problems after they happen to proactively looking for them before they happen. It means constantly asking, what could go wrong here? And just as importantly, how could we do this even better? Okay, let's get into the audit itself. When it's done right, it's not a scary inspection. It's more like a strategic 4-phase mission. Seriously, a good audit should never feel like a surprise attack. It's a really clear 4-step process. It starts with a solid plan so everyone's on the same page. Then comes the actual audit, the conducting part. After that, you get the report. And, this is key, there's a follow-up to make sure that the fixes you put in place actually worked. No surprises. So this is where the rubber meets the road. An auditor can't just take your word for it, right? They need to see cold, hard, objective evidence. So what exactly does that look like? They're going to look at a whole range of things. They'll start high level with stuff like your quality manual. Then they'll zoom in on your standard operating procedures, your SOPs. And finally, they'll dig into your records, things like training logs, customer complaints, supplier reviews, to see if what you say you do matches what you actually do. And you know, when they look through all that evidence, auditors tend to find the same issues over and over again. These are the common tripwires. It could be a corrective action from last year's audit that was never actually finished, or a big, shiny quality objective that's just sitting in a binder somewhere gathering dust. These are the things to watch out for. Now, here's the secret weapon. Here's what a lot of people miss. An audit isn't just about paperwork and processes. A huge part of whether an audit is successful, well, it comes down to the people. I love this quote because it is so true. You could have the world's leading expert on the ISO standard, but if they can't have a normal conversation with your team, they're going to miss a ton of important stuff. The best auditors know how to turn a stressful interview into a really productive, open conversation. And this little table here is like a cheat sheet for that. A skilled auditor knows how to handle all these different personalities. They know how to draw information out of the super quiet person, how to politely get the overtalker back on track, and how to make the nervous new employee feel comfortable. It's all about adapting your approach to the person in front of you. And the funneling technique is a perfect example of one of their tricks of the trade. They'll start really broad with an open-ended question like, "Hey, can you just walk me through this process?" Then, based on what you say, they'll ask more specific, probing questions. And finally, they'll lock it all in with a simple, closed question to confirm they understood. It's a brilliant way to get a ton of rich, detailed information.
So the auditor leaves, you get your certificate, you're done. Time to celebrate, right? Well, yes, definitely celebrate, but the work is not over. So many companies make the huge mistake of thinking the certificate is the finish line, when really it's just the starting gun for the next lap.
And this is the biggest danger of all, post-certification complacency. It's when that beautiful quality system you built becomes nothing more than a paperweight that sits on a shelf until the next audit rolls around. You're just wasting a massive opportunity for real improvement. The goal is to make it a living, breathing part of how you work every single day.
And a simple dashboard like this is an amazing way to do that. Instead of burying your audit findings in a 100-page report, you turn them into a visual tool that tracks your progress in real time. You can see what's getting better, spot new problems as they pop up, and know exactly where you need to focus. This is what continuous improvement actually looks like in practice. So, I want to leave you with this one final thought. The next time you see that audit on your calendar, ask yourself this question. Is this a final exam that you just need to survive? Or is it the first day of school for getting to the next level? Because if you treat it like an exam, you'll always be cramming. But if you see it as a chance to learn and get better, that's when you turn your quality system into your secret weapon.